us a little bit of background of what you went through then.
Sure. Grew up in Stevensville, Michigan, southwest corner, near fairly close to South Bend, and grew up on 10 acres of woods. Um, Two older brothers, Keith and John. Always have had and still do have a great relationship. The 10 acres we grew up on was just perfect for us. It was fun. We built forts, had baseball games in the fields, football games. Dad worked for Clark Equipment, was a hardworking man. Mom worked as a librarian and as a housewife, and she was a hard worker also. They they taught all three of us good work ethics just by watching them. Watching Dad get up every morning and go to work and come home and working around the 10 acres. We call it the farm, even though it wasn't the farm. We still do. Um, they taught us a lot, and I don't think they realized how much they taught us without teaching us, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But great relationship with my parents. My parents are still around. My brothers are still around. Obviously, I'm still around. I'm here. Went to Lakeshore schools. We lived just a couple miles from the beaches, the shores of Lake Michigan. Just had a great time growing
Was
up.
there a certain point in time when you personally kind of, I'm not saying you have completely now, but was there a certain point in time in which you kind of lost that laughter?
Um, yes and no. I mean, I love life right now. I love my life. Um, there have been points in my life that weren't good. More than one, more than two. Obviously mistakes I've made, mistakes other people have made that affected me. Um, I've always tried to use humor to get through things. So I think I've never lost the laughter. Maybe put it on hold for a little bit. It's like my job. I've said since day one when I first started working, you have to have fun at your job, but there's a time to work. And there's a time to have fun and to laugh in life, but there's also a time where you've got to be serious. So I've never lost the laughter. Sometimes didn't laugh, because it either just wasn't the right time or it just it didn't fit. But I've never lost it. Still have it. And and I'm a lot of people say I'm funny and or funny looking. Maybe both. I don't know.
I would
That
say a
helps
little bit
also.
of both. Just
I would, yeah, I agree
interjecting my,
with that.
my two cents. There's a time to be serious. When was that time for you? Was there a certain time that kind of clicked when you started working or after you got out of school or a time for you when you decided, it's time to get serious?
When I looked at my wife on the altar and said, "I do,"
Mm.
that was the beginning of a new life. A wife, and we would have kids, and we had a lot of dreams that we wanted to accomplish, and we accomplished those in our marriage.
Can
Um,
can you just back up
it
for a
was,
second and just, describe how you two met and the circumstances around that?
yep, we worked in a grocery store. Um, I was working in the meat department, and I can't remember what department she was working in, but we formally met at work. We knew who each other was in high school, but never really talked because we hung around in different crowds. She was a couple years younger than me, but we started working together, and that's where we met and connected.
Was it, and I don't even know if I believe in this, but was it love at first sight?
No, no, there's no such thing as love at first
Why don't you
sight.
think there is such a thing as love at first sight?
I think there's lust at first. You look at someone and you think they're attractive, but you can't fall in love with someone until you talk to them and get to know them. And I don't think that happens over the course of a night or maybe even a week. It can happen quicker for some people. You can look at someone and say, wow, they're attractive. I'd like to get to know them. And then you build a relationship. But as far as looking at someone and say, yeah, I'm in love with you. I'm sorry, what's your name?
Yeah.
That's just, I don't believe that
Um,
that's
your
legitimate love.
career, which is one of the biggest things that men, shoulder as far as having a family and having to provide. You were a meat cutter at the
Yes.
supermarket. Pays pretty well.
Yep.
Um,
It can. Yes.
and you were doing pretty good for quite some time with that, correct? How long were you in that vein while you were married?
Well, I've been doing it since 1986 um, at a smaller grocery store in Benton Harbor, um, you know, close to here. And I've moved up over the years, worked for the world's largest company. Um, I don't know if I'm allowed to say their name on here. Um, Worked for a lot of very well-known, reputable companies, that people have heard of all throughout the country. And then I worked for smaller stores in the area. I've probably worked for 10 different, stores, 10 different, 8 or 9 different companies, and been doing it since, like I said, 1986, and it's what I'm continuing to do to this day.
So when you were married and you're going to work every day and you have that security, let's say, and you're really confident in what you do and how you're providing. Were there any other insecurities in your life at that time? Other than, I mean, it seems like you kind of just had the job was okay. It was in your pocket. You didn't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
Were there any other insecurities in the marriage, raising kids, anything that
Oh yeah,
kind of tripped you up?
life kind of tripped us up, and by that I mean, you know, life is scary. Um, Getting married now, I have a wife to provide for. We have a child now. I have a wife and a child to provide for. Even people that are given things, I think there's pressure and everything. So it can be pretty stressful sometimes.
And that stress um, was a strain on your relationships, specifically your relationship with your wife.
Yes.
And it came to a boiling point at some point. Uh, um,
Or some
as it can
points.
with millions of marriages. I mean, you're not abnormal in that respect. I mean, everybody deals with, just like you said, with life. Um, but let's kind of move to the side for a second before we kind of go there. You were involved in the church, both of you. Um, when I knew you,
Yes.
what role
Yep.
did your faith play in your marriage, or did it not play a role, or somewhere in between? Can you speak to that?
My faith, I would love to say, played a major role in our marriage, but I don't know if it actually did. When things got stressful, I was always the one, and even now my attitude was, we're going to make it through this. But as far as me, my faith played a major role in our marriage and in my life, before the marriage, during the marriage, and even now that I'm not married. Um, Faith is a major part of my life. It's gotten me through a lot. Not that it's gotten me through more than your average person, I would say.
So let's move forward just a little bit. Can you, like you explained to me in our conversation last year, can you kind of go through that whole scenario the first night, I think the night of the Super Bowl, when uh, things kind of came crashing down and the beginning of your next chapter of your life started?
Sure. We were um, we were foster parents to 5 kids at that time, and we had our kids 3 kids living with us, and in a house that wasn't big enough for that many people. Um, and my team, the Seattle Seahawks, in their second consecutive Super Bowl, lost to the New England Patriots on a boneheaded play. So after the game, I went and laid down to drown my sorrows with my pillow. And a few minutes later, my wife came in and said that she was, 2 of the foster kids were going to be leaving soon to go back with their parents. They were getting reunited. So we had three girls, sisters, ages, I want to say 5, 2, and 1. So very young. And she came in and said that she was going to be moving out with the girls. Basically our marriage is over. And that really hit me hard. We had 25 years in our marriage, and then to come in like that, I felt blindsided, I felt hurt, I felt betrayed, I felt a lot of things, and I kind of went off on her. I just laid in bed still thinking about my team losing the Super Bowl and thinking about all of this stuff and 10, 20 different things running through my head at one time. What's going to happen with this? What's going to happen with that? What are we going to do? What am I going to do? What are my kids going to do? It really hit me hard, and it hurt a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty normal reaction. I don't know if there is any normal for such things, but when you get blindsided, you don't see it coming, and it's
Yeah.
usually a pretty solid punch, and it's going to hurt. Um, what was your next major step after that?
Well, after that, she had moved out. She had already secured a house to live in, and she was gone a month or 2. I can't remember. Had a falling out with the landlord, came back, and she was going to look for, she'd actually found a house about 15 miles away that she's going to move into with the foster kids and my oldest daughter. And I said, don't do that. Don't leave, because we had a nice house, we had a pool, a nice yard. It was in a nice neighborhood. The town park was literally our backyard. I said, there's no point in all of you guys packing up and leaving when you have this nice house to live in. I'll find a place to live. So I started looking, and it was maybe a month. So another, milestone in my life was moving out into my own apartment, being on my own for the first time.
That's got to be tough. Those are the first words that come to my mind. It's just got to be so incredibly hard to deal with mentally, physically, emotionally, to leave your house, your family, your quote unquote wife, and live somewhere else away from them.
Yes.
Your faith, again, did you rely on that during that time, or was that a downtime for you?
I relied on it as much as I could. I accepted Christ into my life December 26, 1976. So I'd been a Christian for, decades, but I wasn't walking with him. I read the Bible, I prayed, I went to church, was a youth leader, went through what people say, went through the motions. I truly love God, always have and always will. I didn't rely on him as much as I should have, as much as I could have, and as much as I let people believe. I needed a lot of help at that time, and didn't ask for it, because I'm a man, and we don't ask for help. It's not what we do. We don't ask for directions. We don't ask for help. So I relied on what little bit I could, what I had inside me.
Was there a point in time where you uh, shook your hand up at the Lord and said, "Why have you abandoned me?" Or did you not even think along those lines? Were you, because you're a man?
Never even thought that, until you just mentioned it now. Um, that thought never crossed my mind because I know that God he never abandons. He never left me. And I never blamed him for anything. And here again, not that I'm, so righteous and holier than thou, but I never blamed God for anything in my life. I gave him credit for helping me and for allowing me to accomplish things, but never blamed him for anything that went wrong.
There was a situation that you found yourself in. You would probably say you got yourself into it, but I'm going to say from this perspective that you found yourself in this situation in which you were on the wrong side of the laws of the state of Michigan. Let's say that.
Mm-hmm.
However far and however deep you want to go, can you kind of delve into that and explain what happened?
Sure. I was living alone in the apartment, and I'm not going to say I was suffering from depression, but I was depressed a lot. A normal day for me was get up, go to work, come home, take a nap, get up, eat dinner, watch TV, go to bed, do the same routine the next day. There would be a day or 2 days where I would never get a text message, a phone call from anyone. And then on Facebook, everyone's lives are perfect. They're going out
Sure.
to bars, they're going out to eat, going to Cubs games, going to the beach, spending time with family. And here I am, watching reruns of Seinfeld. I just fell into a place in my life where I don't want to say no one cared or no one had time for me, but that's how it felt. If I would have reached out, there would have been people that would have said, "Hey, let's go out, let's go do something." But I didn't do that. And I found myself on Facebook reaching out to anyone who would hold a conversation with me. And had a short conversation with someone that was inappropriate. And I got in trouble for it. I said some inappropriate things that I should not have said and got arrested. Walking outside of work in the morning, got arrested. About seemed like 100, but maybe 4 or 5 police officers surrounded me and grabbed my phone I was talking to, put me up against my car, and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest, and I'm wondering what the heck is going on because I honestly had no idea what was going on. And then they took me to the state police station, still not knowing what was going on. Took me in the interrogation room, took handcuffs off, and the detective explained to me why I was being arrested. And that's when my world came crashing down. It hit me worse than anything ever hit me in my entire life. That's when it all ended and all started at the same time. That's when that part of my life ended and a new chapter was about to begin. In that split second when he told me, what I had done.
Move on to you went through the court system. There was a sentencing, apparently, and you received some probation or you served some time in the jail. I can't remember what that was. You served a little time, right?
About 3 months, 3.5 months, and 5 years probation.
Okay. And because of your probation, there was a lot of restrictions as to your communications, your social communications, which added
Right.
injury to insult. I think it was good in one way and good and bad in another way because they're telling you you have to cut off all social contact.
Yes.
How did just now see when you move into your own apartment, you feel like that's a low. Okay? You get arrested, that's another low. After you serve your time, you get out, you're on probation, they say you can't talk to anybody. How much farther can you go? Let's take it one step farther and talk about your next experience, um, not having a home. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, when I got out of jail, obviously I'd lost my apartment, I'd lost my job. Um, I had a car that I couldn't pay for. My daughter was using it and paying for it. Um, I think I had $7 in my bank account, and I literally had nowhere to go. My parents lived in a small one-bedroom apartment. One brother lives out east. Another one lived around here, and I never asked any of them. I never asked, "Can I live with you?" Because I got myself into that situation, and I was going to get myself out. So what I did was I went to the Salvation Army homeless shelter for men in downtown Benton Harbor, and lived in the homeless shelter for about 3 months, and met a lot of interesting people in a homeless shelter, and then was there for 3 months, moved out, and then things didn't work out where I was living. I was living in a hotel, and it almost caught fire. So I thought, yeah, I don't think I want to live here anymore. So I moved back into the shelter and was there for about a month.
So you were in the low and then you popped your head up out of the water and somebody pushed your head back into the water again. Uh,
Yes. But a bright spot in that, when I got out of jail, first thing I started to do was look for a job. So I did have a job. I got a job about a month and a half after I got out. Found a good job, good paying job. Um, People who knew about my past and were gracious enough to give me a chance and hire me. So I did have income. I was able to get my get my car back and start paying for things on my own. I did receive a little help. One of my brothers did help me out somewhat. I had to buy a few things. With $7 in your bank account, you can't go out and buy a whole new wardrobe. So my family, my parents, they helped me out financially.
yeah.
So I did have a job.
I was thinking about something when you were talking there when you got your car back and you had a job. Now you wrote a book, and I read your book. I read the whole thing. It was a good book, by the way. I would recommend it. I wish I
Thank
had
you.
it right next to me because I'd hold it up for everybody to see. But what's the name of the book and where can they get it?
It's called Living the Shelter Life, and you can get it on Amazon. What it is, it was about my experiences of living in the homeless shelter. And it's not my story or my situation. What I did was I interviewed the men there and asked them, why are you here? What's your future plans? And if they didn't want me to use their real name, I wouldn't. I thought I'd get about 3 or 4 guys who would be willing to talk to me. It got to the point where men were coming up to me and asking me when I was going to talk to them or interview them for the book, which felt good. And I got to know some of the men on a deeper level. A couple of them got very emotional, just broke down and cried about their situation. And I learned a lot about a lot of the men up there. And one thing I learned is that some men are very happy being homeless. That's the life they chose. That's the life they want. That's the life they're going to live. They want to be homeless. Some men have dreams. And if they never reach those dreams, as long as they keep trying every day, that's good. That's okay. That doesn't mean you haven't accomplished anything. I have a lot of dreams in my life, and chances are I won't achieve all those dreams or all those goals, but I'm striving for them every day. But I learned that some men, they don't want to do that. They want to live off the state or live off the system, and that's what they're happy doing.
It's kind of a sad state of affairs when you think about it, but from this side, I've never lived in a homeless shelter. I want to ask you, what are some of the misconceptions out there about homelessness or homeless shelters that people have that you learned that you might be able to kind of set straight here? What do you think are some of the misconceptions that people need to know aren't true?
Well, I can only speak for the one shelter I lived in. Um, for the most part, the men, we all got along. As long as you did your job, each day we are assigned different tasks we had to do. And if you did them, great. If not, the other men in the shelter would get on you. I had to kind of get tough with one of the young men there who just refused to help and do anything. And I said, look, you're here. You got to help. Well, I'm not helping. I'm not doing a thing. I said, well, you're not going to eat tonight. You know, um, some people like that are just stubborn. We had one guy come in one night, a young man, was probably early 20s, and I introduced myself and extended my hand for a handshake, and I said, what's your name? He said, you don't need to know that. And I responded with, I'm just trying to be nice, and it's going to be a lot easier if you're polite and don't have an attitude. Later that night, he ended up getting kicked out for starting a fight. Now, when I moved out and came back the second time, he was in there. And he was the nicest man you ever met. He extended his hand to me for a handshake. And his attitude had changed because I think he understood that he needs that place. That place doesn't need him. He needs that place. So for the most part, for the shelter in Benton Harbor, it was a good place. They took care of us the best that they could, but they also took care of us by not keeping us there forever. They told us, you got 3 months. You need to get out, find a job, find a place to live. They didn't enable us in any way to remain homeless.
And so you got out, you got a job, you found a place to live.
Yep.
Do you still participate? Are you still involved with the homeless shelter at all? Do you volunteer? Do you go back? Or is that something that you just want to turn your back and not look at again?
I've been back a few times. I did take some food down there. My brother and I went and bought some donuts and bought breakfast for them. My parents attend church there. They like the service. So I do have a little bit of a connection. Part of me wants to turn my back on it. And in a way, I hope I never see any of those men again.
Yeah.
I wonder about some of them. I don't want to say that they were friends. I'm fairly certain that some of them are either dead or still homeless out there somewhere. I wish them all well. I really do. I don't wish any ill will on anyone. But it's hard to really show a lot of concern for people when they just don't care about life.
Yeah.
I hope and pray that they are, that they're all doing well.
So you, like we said, you've gotten yourself out of that situation. You're on what seems to be the upswing, right?
Yeah.
You've got a job, you got a place, you are living your life. You're, for all intents and purposes, serving your probation correctly. And what's next for Matt Avery?
Well, I don't know. I have a lot I want to accomplish at the church. Passion and I are working on some projects that I'm really excited about, and hopefully he is too. I think he is. Are you?
I mean,
He is. I've accomplished so much in the last 4.5, 5 years. I bought a car, overcame a stroke, which I still deal with, some side effects. But everything that life, and by life I mean the devil, everything that's been thrown at me, I deal with it through Christ. I have a lot I want to accomplish, and until the day I leave this earth, I'm going to strive to accomplish everything that I want to accomplish.
On the tail end of what you just said, what do you feel like God has called you to? Is there a men's ministry or something along those lines that you feel connected to spiritually?
Yes, I just don't know what it is yet. I believe it's the church. I do. The first time I came back to the church after getting out of jail and being humiliated by what I did, I sat in the parking lot and thought to myself, if I don't go in right now, I never will. And I've been accepted by everyone. Um, everyone who knows my situation. It's just been overwhelming in a good
Well,
way.
maybe to sum up some of this, what I have heard and what I've seen concerning Matt Avery is not necessarily how low you fell and was able to be brought up by your faith, but I think we should look at it from the flip side is no matter how far down you went, that's how far God went with you to help pull you back up. So the story that I'm hearing in your life is not necessarily how far you fell, but how far down God went to help pick you back up. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. He's always been with me, and I've learned to lean on him more than I ever have. When this all happened in my life was at an absolute lowest. There's the old saying, you can either give up or keep trying. And for me, giving up was never an option. Because that's a negative. To give up is just negative. That was never an option. Moving forward and getting myself out of the mess that I got myself into, the option. So I've always looked forward. There's been bumps in the road, and there will continue to be bumps in the road. But it's my faith in Christ that gets me through, every situation. Um, I give him praise and glory for everything good that happens in my life. And when something is put in front of me, I pray and I reach out for help, um, and I overcome that obstacle. And it's easy to do. For me, it really is. When you've overcome one thing, now you can overcome the next thing and the next thing, and the next thing is going to be bigger than the last thing.
Sure.
And I look forward to challenges. Not that I want my life to come crashing down again, but I know that if I get put in a situation that by myself I can't overcome, I have an army of people out there who are willing to help. People that I met at my job, the most unexpected friend in the most unexpected place. My pastor, my brothers, my parents, just different friends. And it's a comfort knowing that they're out there for me and they know I'm out here for them.
I have one more question for you, and you can
Okay?
take as long as you want, explain as long as you want. But if we had a time machine and you could go back and speak to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Put $100 on the Cubs to win the 2016 World Series. um, the second piece of advice I would give myself is to stay faithful to God and his word. And that covers so much, I wish I would have done so much that I didn't do. And I don't look back and get depressed and think, oh, I regret this and that. Sure, we all have regrets. But I would tell myself, get in the Word, pray. Just read the Bible and soak it up like a sponge. Don't just read Scripture and memorize them. Anyone can do that. But what do they mean? Get the true meaning of it. And I think once you do that, no, I believe once you do that, your life will be so much easier because when an obstacle does come in your way, you'll know how to handle it. You won't have to struggle and wait until it's too late. So I tell myself, get in the Word, pray more, and just research God's Word and learn more about Him. That'll just make your life 100% easier.
Well, I guess that sums up who you are in 2021. And I just want to tell you that your story definitely matters, and I'm sure that there will be somebody that sees this and or listens to this that it will really speak to and will need to hear it. I'm sure there's people that are struggling with the same things that you went through and are going through, and it is my hope and desire that your story will matter to them and will be an influence and an inspiration to them. So I thank you for your time. I really do. I thank you for spending this time talking to us and helping us to get to know you. And even though it says Christopher Petty up here on the top of this, we need to remind ourselves that this is Matt Avery. Correct?
Correct. I appreciate you having me. This was great. Glad to do it. Very happy to do it. I hope this helps. Even if it helps one person, it was well worth it.